leading environmental technology trade fair that brings policymakers, key industry players, thought leaders, and innovators from across the globe together. On behalf of IFAT India, we extend a very warm welcome to the industry leaders and to our IFAT community. We have received an overwhelming response. We already see that we have over close to 1,000 people registered already and logged in. So very big thank you for all our visitor community who have been a part of it, all the industry stakeholders and stalwarts from the industry joining. We are certain that we will have good discussions and insights in the next hour. Well, they say these are tough times and that we all go through it. And it calls for us for newer ways towards a new normal to collaborate and to restructure. Just thinking and to strongly pave this way forward, I'm glad we have an esteemed battery of speakers, our panelists, who are stalwarts in the industry, and that is the reason why you have logged in today. Thank you, gentlemen, for accepting the invitation from IFAT. The discussion today is recorded and will be shared live on YouTube soon after the session is over. I'm told we have close to 2,400 registrations, and we are hoping we have around 1,000 logins on this session today. Well, before we begin, we shall play a short video from IFAT India before I hand it over to Mr. Shirodkar. Can we play the... Thank you.
Compared to the last edition, IFAT India has indeed gained a reputation of a leading environmental...
Well, thank you very much. We wanted to keep it short. I now hand it over to Mr. Kailash Shirodkar, the founder of Smart Water and Waste World Magazine, to take the proceedings forward. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Robin. So before I begin, just a small kind of an instruction. I would request all attendees that if they have any questions, that they should direct those questions at the Q&A box below. And also a small request that it would be great if you, don't send any kind of chat request to any of the panelists. So good afternoon, everybody. My name is Kailash Shirodkar, the founder for Smart Water and Waste World Magazine. And it is my privilege to have an esteemed panel for the discussion today. So to quickly introduce the panels, we have Mr. Rajneesh Chopra, the Global Head Business Development for VA-Tech Wabag. We have Mr. Ajay Popat, the President at Ion Exchange Limited.
Good afternoon.
Dr. Nitin Bhate, Senior Marketing Director at Xylem Water Solutions. We have Mr. Hemant Joshi, the SBU Head for the Water Business at Thermax. Mr. E.P. Sajid, Senior Vice President for the Wet Division, an independent company at L&T.
Hello, everyone.
Mr. Hemant Watwe, the CMD for Velo Mather and Flat Pumps. And Mr. Yatin Tahelia, Senior VP South Asia for Suez Water Technologies.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone.
So a warm welcome to all the panelists, and I'm sure that their experience and knowledge that they would share over the next 60 to 90 minutes would go a long way in helping most of the participants understand the implications of the situation that we are in. So to quickly kickstart the discussion, I would direct my first question to Mr. Rajneesh Chopra. Sir, the question is primarily as to how do you see the impact of COVID-19 on the ongoing government and municipal projects or any of those projects that were about to be signed? Rajneesh?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So thank you. I think it's a very apt question to kickstart this whole conversation. I think as far as our ongoing projects are concerned, we primarily have O&M projects, which contributes around 20% of our business. We have municipal EPC projects, and we have industrial EPC projects. Now, these are three categories of the projects which we have. As far as our O&M business is concerned, since it is all covered under essential utilities, both water and wastewater. So that has been running to the full capacity, and I don't think there is any effect of this COVID on that. Rather, it's helped us, redevise the way we operate our plants. So it has definitely got some positive impact, which I'll share in due course. As far as municipal EPC is concerned, I think based on the government directive, I think all construction was stopped. Now, recently we have got a circular from Ministry of Home Affairs, where, construction projects of water and sanitation, now they are allowed to restart the work. But as far as restarting the work, there has to be a state consent, and we are, finding that different states are taking different time frames for allowing us to restart the work. So, and as far as industrial EPC is concerned, there are two categories of projects. One, where the work came to a halt. There is another category where our clients, because since we do large projects in oil and gas, so where they had the requisite permissions from the government. But in those cases, there is nobody who has been allowed to come inside or go out of the premises. So all arrangements have been made, right from their stay, sanitation, food, everything for all employees, all workers, and everybody is operating out of that. So that has helped us, do our projects. As far as international projects are concerned, I think O&M, as I said, it has been running at full capacity. As far as EPC is concerned, there are certain countries where they did not ask us to stop the project. Like Qatar was one, the other one is Saudi Arabia, where we have some large projects going on. But what happened is, normally in our construction, if we were doing one shift or two shifts, so we have reduced the number of people, and we have increased the number of shifts. So we have maintained the social distances. The safety norms have been totally revised. The safety adherence is totally new than compared to what used to be in the past. And in those cases, I would say still we are able to, make the progress with our plan to 70 to 80%. We are able to do that. So that is in brief what I can tell you about the current impact of COVID-19 or various projects.
Thanks, Rajneesh. I will take the question again to Mr. Sajid. Sir, any impact you have seen on ongoing projects or announcement of new projects in the municipal space at L&T? Sajid?
I think he's on mute.
Sajid, you might have to unmute your phone.
Yeah, sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm back. So good afternoon, everyone. I would like to start, speaking about O&M projects. These were the projects that were not stalled because of the lockdown, and we had to go on with the O&M activities, majorly because it is covered under the essentials category, as well as it is serving the most important of all human needs, that is water. And of course, there is sanitation and hygiene also attached with the project that we execute. L&T itself is executing about 51 projects in operation and maintenance. Like Mr. Rajneesh said, we were working at full capacity. We have about 4,300 people on board, and we are serving close to 4.5 crores of the population in the country through various drinking water supply projects as well as sewerage projects. And the challenge was to ensure that these people stayed safe and healthy during the course of operation maintenance, though all kinds of precautions were taken. And so far, so good, and everything has been hunky-dory, and people have been fit and hale and hearty, and the operation maintenance of all the projects are going on without any issues. But we are apprehensive that the same situation may not continue for a long period, because whatever said and done, there is some kind of an exposure to these people who are working in the operation and maintenance projects. So we have been working with our customers to create some kind of a protocol on how the operation maintenance activities should be taken up, given the worst case scenario of some people getting impacted in the team who are handling the operations. Of course, there is a protocol for handling the person or persons themselves as regards how to take care of the quarantine, how to hospitalize them, how to isolate the people who are involved in the operation maintenance. But we are working out the protocol with our customers on how to undertake the operation maintenance with lesser people, maybe longer shifts. Maybe at some point in time, the customer themselves will have to chip in with some kind of resources to take forward the operation maintenance of water and wastewater projects. We are expecting, we are hoping for the best, but we are preparing for the worst. We are confident that the situation will continue as it is with all the precautions that we have taken, but we are just preparing for the worst. So this protocol, I would suggest to all the department heads and to all the agencies who are listening to me right now, that they need to probably have a protocol if they already don't have one, so that if the situation starts going south, then you have the right kind of actions in place. That is with regard to operation maintenance. As regards EPC contracts, as Mr. Rajnish rightly said, and all the projects came to a halt on 25th of March when the lockdown was announced. And pursuant to 20th of April 2020, based on the MHA orders of 15th and 16th April, we have been able to commence work in some of the sites. Overall, L&T is executing about 82 odd projects in the municipal water sector between drinking water and wastewater. As of now, we have got permission to commence activities in 32 of our projects. Prior to the lockdown, we had about 15,000 workmen staying with us, executing our projects, and our endeavor was to keep them with us when the lockdown was announced, so that we don't contribute to the spread, and as also insulate the workmen from the pandemic. We also wanted to ensure that whenever the lockdown was opened up, we could start the field activities on time without any delay. So most of these 15,000 odd workmen we have been able to retain in the safety and comfort of our workmen habitat, and I use these words very carefully because the kind of accommodation and habitat and the facilities that we have provided in our accommodation, it is truly world class. And we have been able to contain, none of our 15,000 odd people who are working in the water and wastewater sector have been impacted by COVID. So post the permissions coming in, we have been able to redeploy 4,000 of these workmen back into the project. It's a matter of time, maybe a couple of weeks or 2 to 4 weeks. I'm sorry, did somebody say something? Yeah. So in the next 2 to 4 weeks, I'm sure that most of the projects will get started, barring those which are in the extreme containment zones like the city of Delhi, Indore, Pune, Mumbai, and so on. But redeployment would be the easier part. The more difficult part would be to ensure that the efficiencies of these resources are ratcheted up over a period of time. Given that construction is a teamwork, enforcement of COVID-19 precautions like working in cohorts, social distancing, usage of PPEs like masks, gloves, and in some cases coveralls, disinfection of the field of work, disinfection of the P&M are all going to impact the productivity of this team that we have deployed. And we are seeing that in the field that the productivity has come down to an all-time low. Moreover, when the lockdown opens up fully, it will be a great task to get people from other parts of the country, because migrant labor is going back to their home states, and it will be very difficult for us to bring them back to the construction sector. More importantly, because the virus continues to wreak havoc. So all in all, we are in a situation where manpower is going to be lesser and the productivity is going to be hitting lows that we have never seen in the past. And so the ask of the hour would be to come up with more mechanization, more automation, more project management skills, so that the productivity and the production in the field gets ratcheted up. On the other side, the industries which are catering to water, like pump manufacturers, pipe manufacturers, valves, treatment plant components manufacturers, they are also impacted by similar. I'm very sure that they're impacted by similar deficiencies in productivity as well as a shortage of manpower. So it is a given that both cost of materials as well as cost of labor is going to go up, and as Mr. Rajnish said, we have already lost a good couple of months of production, which is the most productive time of the year. And going forward in May and June also, we don't see any much of positivity. So we are going to lose 3 to 4 months, which is also going to impact the timelines of the projects. So all in all, we are in a situation where timelines are going to get increased, the costs are going to go up, and a new norm of execution is going to come up, which will mandate more automation and mechanization. And you also asked about announcement of new projects. I would like to say that presently we are sitting on about 25,000 crores of tenders in the drinking water and the wastewater sector. All of these are in our sweet area, which is 200 crores and above. And when we interact with the departments concerned, we are seeing that they are very positive and bullish about seeing these prospects to culmination into orders. It's also a fact that many of the projects in water are multilaterally funded, so those projects are not going to see any delay. And even if there is some delay in the government projects, it is going to be for maybe 2 or 3 months, by when the government would be able to reassess the financial condition, refocus its resources to the water sector. So I don't personally see that announcement of projects or culmination of contracts is going to be an issue. In fact, during the lockdown itself, we have been able to culminate about 2,800 crores of World Bank funded projects in Karnataka. I think that's it from my end for that.
Thanks, Ajit. I'll take this question now to Dr. Bhate from Xylem, because we have got 2 EPC companies talking about it. Sir, in your view, have you seen an impact for your business in the municipal segment?
Yes. First of all, good afternoon, everyone. For those who don't know Xylem, we are a products and solutions company, and we essentially support the water cycle, whether it's extraction, transport, treatment, and enabling consumption. So water treatment, wastewater treatment is a big part of our business. We are seeing, like Mr. Rajneesh and Mr. Sajid talked about, we are also seeing that both our customers and utilities are facing many challenges. Broadly 3 buckets of challenges. Financial challenges, because the revenue has been impacted for the utilities. The budgets are impacted as budgets get prioritized. Operational challenges, as they have to operate with fewer people, operate remotely, and also health and safety challenges, because they have to deal with not just the COVID-19 impact on their operations, but also is this going to impact the water supply? How do we protect the water supply, or treated wastewater? How do we protect that? So those are some of the challenges. And as a product, technology, and solutions company, it is our responsibility to help our customers and utilities overcome those challenges, and overcome from two aspects. One is the continuity of the business. How do we help our customers run their operations, but also how do you build resilience, so that if second wave of this virus comes, or if there are similar challenges in future, how do you create a more resilience business operations? So and I think Mr. Sajid pointed to that earlier, but we do see that moving towards smart processes, smart equipment, as well as what I would call smart people, where people are continuously trained, skilled. I think those are some of the things that we will have to focus on. But coming back to today's situation, we are seeing the challenges. We are working with our customers and utilities on how do we overcome these challenges: financial, operational, and health and safety. And just to add one more point from our own perspective, because we have a manufacturing facility. We have 2 manufacturing facilities in India. We have operations. Our operations are equally impacted. Most of our employees are working from home, but at the same time, essential projects and services employees are in the field, and we are training and we are building our capability so that the drop in productivity that we see can be, first of all, minimized, and we can bounce back more quickly. So those would be some of my observations, Mr. Shirodkar.
Thanks, Nitin. I'll take the question back to Rajneesh. Rajneesh, you mentioned about your global operations, and we know that COVID-19 is a global pandemic. how are your clients, and specifically in the municipal segment, how is the response been as compared to India? Do you see a difference in the way they are responding and reacting to this situation?
Yeah. Uh, Kailash, as I mentioned earlier also, when I see the overseas projects, most of our overseas projects, they did not come to a complete halt. But, there was in between a gap of maybe a week or 10 days where we had to resubmit our execution plans. So the number of people per shift which were involved into the execution of the projects had to be reduced. Social distancing norms had to be reintroduced. There is a protocol for sanitizing the entire site and the labor colonies every now. The number of people who were there in the labor colonies, that had to be reduced. New accommodation had to be taken. So all these things were not, but they ensured. But still, I would not say that we could do 100% of our planned work. We could do 70 to 80% of our planned work in those geographies compared to India, where it almost came to a halt, barring some industrial clients which had the requisite permissions for executing the project. Now, whatever has been the additional cost which has been incurred in executing these projects because of this revised norms and unprecedented situation like COVID-19, I think overseas the clients, they gave us a chance to make a representation, and they have considered our extra, claims very, very carefully, and we are hopeful that they will consider it and will be whatever is the impact, additional impact, that will be reimbursed to us. I think Sajid also spoke about the similar thing, that in India it is going to be there. So in other forum, I was talking about the same thing, that we need to engage with our customers, especially the municipal customers, where we have a contract. So normally we are not very flexible in India on that, but because of this, so we'll have to rework our cost. We will have to rework our payment terms to ensure that we have enough of liquidity and cash flow in India. So probably once the sites start opening, that more and more people are available in their offices, and we also have a freedom of movement, I think we'll have to engage with them, because that would be greatly in the interest of the projects. And obviously we'll have certain catch-up plans, based on our learnings overseas, that how in India also we can have that catch-up plan. So having said that, the key thing would be, we need to be paid in time. Especially when it comes to, our government contracts, we need to be paid in time. This is an unprecedented situation. People are talking about a lot of, support coming through the banking system and financial institutions. But what is the foremost thing is that we need to be paid all our pending dues immediately. That's something which the government in India has to consider very favorably.
Thanks, Rajneesh. I will slightly move from the municipal to the industrial sector now to see the impact. My next question goes to Ajay from Ion Exchange. So Ajay, with the lockdown that's happened for the last 35 days, close to 35 days now, and we see industry shut, how have you seen the impact on industrial wastewater projects, or the discussions that you are having with clients? Have you seen the impact of this lockdown on the industrial wastewater project?
Well, good afternoon. And as we all know that India is a part of the global community, be it our needs for luxury, be it our needs for travel, or be it so we are facing the global impact of COVID-19. And let me give you some examples when I make this particular statement. The International Monetary Fund has predicted that the global GDP is going to shrink to below 3, or something like about 2.5 to 3%, from the current global GDP of 3.3%. Now, this is something which has not been witnessed or seen by industries or states since the Great Depression of 1930s. So we have to relook back to the history and learn as how economies emerged after the Great Depression of 30s. So history is a great motivator. History teaches us lessons, and history also tells us as how to overcome challenges. Now, if you look at the Indian scenario, the medium and the small scale industry, we call them as MSMEs, they contribute to 29. They contribute to 29% of our GDP. They also account for nearly 50% of exports from India, and they provide employment to close to about 11 crore people. Now, this is the sector which also provides business to companies like Ion Exchange, companies like Thermax, and also possibly to companies like Wabag, Suez, Xylem, etc. Now, this industry, not only for the sake of the country's GDP, because as I said, it contributes to about 29%, requires packages. And so far, there was no announcement made. But I'm very happy that I heard Nitin Gadkari talking about a likely package of about 1 lakh crores coming to the medium and the small scale industry. Now, if this industry is made to revive, not only we are going to save jobs, but we are also going to see the impact on our GDP, the impact on the water industry's business, and also on our export is minimized beyond this last 2 months since we faced the impact of COVID. Now, if you have to look at some good news, the good news is also what IMF says. And IMF says that post-COVID, which probably is in the second quarter or the third quarter or the fourth quarter of our calendar year, India is going to emerge as one of the strongest economies. And I'm not surprised when they make that prediction, because traditionally we have been an agrarian economy. Agriculture has contributed to nearly about 3% of our GDP. Services and invisibles have contributed to about 1% or 1.5%, and industry's contribution has been about 1.5%. And that's our 6 to 7% GDP growth. So in any case, agriculture and consumption and services and invisibles are going to see that our GDP maintains a growth of about 4 to 4.5%. But along with this, the revival of industries, the medium and small scale industries, will also see that the water industry, which services the requirement, also sees its fortunes changing quarter two onwards.
I'll take this now to Hemant Joshi from Thermax. Sir, as one of the leading players in the industrial wastewater space, how have you seen the impact of COVID on your customers and their expansion plans, or any of those?
Yeah, good afternoon to all the panelists and a very good afternoon to all the participants. I take this opportunity to wish all of you a very safe and healthy stay at home. And I'm sure we are all practicing the lockdown norms. Now the industry, as Ajay has also elaborated, see, let us first accept that lockdown was a must and necessary for the health of the society. If we have a healthy society, we'll have a healthy economy. So I think let's come to the fact that yes, it was a must, and till such time the situation doesn't improve, the lockdown should be welcomed in all the hot zones that are presently, we're just talking a few minutes back, like Mumbai and Pune, should be continued. Coming back to the economy, without doubt, there has been an adverse impact on the industry, be it the water industry or any other industry. We are all interrelated. It's not specifically for water. Water services, as Ajay said, a lot of other industries. So if the industry does well, the industry or the companies in the utility space do well. So without doubt, I'm saying that there has been an adverse impact on the economy, on the industries, and finally on the economy. We have seen the last quarter, the revenues, the order booking, and the cash inflows coming down. This not only limits the impact to the last quarter of the last financial year, but the current financial year also gets impacted by that. So this, the last year's impact, the last financial year's impact was limited only to the month of March. Though March contributes a huge amount of revenues and order booking for any company, being the last month of the financial year, but the impact in this financial year would be much higher. And with the uncertainty around the COVID-19, how long will it continue? When will the vaccine be available? When will the society at large be able to face it? There's a lot of uncertainty around it. With that uncertainty, the financial year 21 will have a huge impact to the extent people would be going back to drawing boards, having their business plans worked out again. I think a lot of companies would have already done that. I see a possibility of 20 to 40% reduction in the revenues in the coming months. As far as the industries are concerned, yes, we would see a revival in a lot of industries. I see the first ones, the healthcare, the pharma, these are the industries, or FMCG, these are the industries that will be fast to recover. There would be industries, metals, minerals will take their own time, and the tourism and aviation, hospitality industry, I mean, I think it's a much long time to go before they recover. So overall, all in all, there'll be a substantial impact on the economy. How long will it take to come back to near normal? It's anybody's guess, maybe 1 year to 3 years. But having a post-lockdown, the important thing is post-lockdown, how do we take care of the situation in hand? We also, as Sajid mentioned and Rajneesh mentioned, we have O&M contracts which run, and we did not have any impact on that. Those were running, though with a reduced manpower, they were running, and they're coming back to the ramp up is already done in most of the places. The equipment business or the project business is getting affected because most of the sites are closed. 2 sites we were able to open, but again, I think the protocols have to be followed. Cash inflow has to be there. The biggest thing today is cash. Cash we always talked about as cash is king. Today it's the emperor. If we do not have cash, how do we run a project? So that becomes extremely important. Going forward, I see the second quarter, there would be some clarity on which industry would start contributing to the inquiry, to the economy in a large way. And then obviously coming back to the water and waste industry as the partners in developing that business. So that's how I see it. But all in all, financial year 21, there'll be a substantial drop in the revenues of all the companies. Probably 22, 23 onwards, we'll try to reach the near norm.
Thanks, Hemant. I will take this question for a different perspective now to some 2 global technology companies. First, I'll reach out to Yatin from Suez Water Technologies. Yatin, have you seen the impact of COVID-19 onto your order books or any of your plans specifically in the industrial sector?
Sure. So let me first comment on on the ongoing activities. Like everyone else said, there's been a similar impact. There's been delay because the sites and all have been shut down, and which will obviously have implication on the technology product supply as well. Probably most of you would know that this pandemic has been declared as a force majeure event. I'm sure that would have its consequences on fate of the project as well. If I look at opportunities going forward, I would say greenfield investments, a lot of them will actually probably move towards the right. It will take some time for them to revive, right? I mean, if I look at specific segments, one of the biggest impact has been on the oil and gas segment, both upstream and downstream, especially with the crude oil prices actually going to negative, which is going to have significant impact on water as a business as well. Likewise, metal power industry will take some time for them to come up as well. Like Hemant mentioned, probably the food and beverage, pharmaceuticals may come back fast up. But if you look at other segments like textile, where a lot of actually product that go to Europe, American market as well, and that business has been significantly impacted with several billions of dollars of orders being cancelled. So that would also have impact on water as a business, right? If you look at brownfield projects, I would say primary driver in the water segment has been meeting the discharge standards, meeting the regulatory norms, or kind of getting around the water scarcity issue, or driving the sustainability vision, right? And in this current circumstance, it's quite possible that these may take a kind of a backseat in short term. I do expect that in a kind of a public sector enterprises, the projects where a lot of projects, whether they are on the expansion or which are really looking at meeting the discharge norms, going for zero liquid discharge, that probably will continue. That's my view.
Nitin, you would like to elaborate from a Xylem point of view?
So Kailash, can you repeat which part you want me to elaborate on?
Specifically on, how is that impacted your last quarter, in terms of sales and ongoing closures?
Yeah. So in terms of the customer engagement, I do want to actually commend how Indian industry has adapted, and all my fellow panelists are part of that. I think we have adapted well. I think in terms of the customer engagement, we do still see there is engagement from our customers. We are working out on how we can structure certain things, but it's not denying the fact that because of the impact on budgets and impact on revenues, we do see that projects will be moving to the right, whether it's OPEX spending as well as CAPEX spending. So and we are so I think that's something that as Mr. Hemant Joshi pointed out and Yatin pointed out, we will see it's projects moving to the right. I think we'll have to work with customers and our partners to figure out what's the best way, because this is almost like a forced transformation in many ways. The way we are working, the way we are doing business, the way we should think about projects. So in many ways, digitization, automation, a lot of these things will come into picture, both in terms of processes as well as products. Similarly, I think we'll have to think about new business models on how do we think about projects, how do we do projects so that there is contingency planning for situations like this. So yes, there is an impact on the immediate, timing perspective, but I do see, as the famous saying goes, don't waste a crisis. I do see as an industry, water and wastewater industry, be coming out of this smarter and in a better position.
Thanks, Yatin. I will take the next question to Hemant from Willow Mather and Platt. So Hemant, specific, I see a lot of similar questions in the Q&A side that people are asking. How does one, manage inventories and, manage the cash flows and all that typically in this scenario?
First of all, thanks IFAT organizers, Mesa mentioned for organizing such a good seminar discussion. I have panelists, so I'm happy to participate. To be fair, the inventories in this context and the finished good impact and production planning, because we are primarily a product manufacturer and we are suppliers to the customers like Thermax, L&T and BATech, and everybody is our customer. So here the point is we ourselves are carrying finished goods. So the sudden screen was off by the government by declaring this lockdown, and our March inventories we are carrying. Our suppliers are carrying inventories. The transportation is still not resumed, although government says that it is resumed, it is not yet resumed. So it has impacted the entire supply chain. And to resume this supply chain, it's going to take a lot of time. The imports have now started coming in. Exports have started going out of this country, so which is good. But the resumption of transportation as well as the suppliers would be the key issue in supply chain in this particular COVID-19 impact analysis, because this resumption might take close to 3 months. And this is an uphill task because cash flow is a percolation. Now the customers of ours are not paying us, whereas our tap is open for our suppliers and the statutory payments and the labor payments. Now you can imagine the effect it is having on the cash flow of a company like us. So it has impacted us. So we are trying to manage our inventories in such a way that we will have now, at least in the next 3 to 6 months time frame, what is needed, where we are sure of execution of project, we will be able to get those inventories, convert them, and then supply, rather than carrying inventories in anticipation. So this is one thing which I am mentioning here. The production planning is again a thing which we are right now trying to resume the operations with regards to the availability. And this availability is what is defining as per the customer need also. So customer need on one side, availability on the other side. We're trying to marry this and trying to maximize the supplies that we can. Today, I must say that the export resumption is something which has happened, which is really good, because we already have lost in last 1 month orders close to, I think 10 to 15 crores to China, because they could resume. All our factories across the globe are working except the Indian factories. And this is where I think the Indian government support, the Maharashtra government support, we play an important role in resuming our activities and again coming back on track as far as the supply chain is concerned.
Thanks. Ajay, a specific question to you. At Ion Exchange, how do you see the impact of cash flows and maybe, your production facilities that are there? Ajay, this question was for you.
You need to unmute.
I thought somebody is muting and unmuting me, so I stopped that operation from my end. Okay, so as someone said, I heard Hemant saying and Rajnish talking about the importance of cash. So as we refocus and reprioritize our strategy, cash management is going to be most important. Now, let me answer this question from Ion Exchange perspective. We have opened our chemical factories in Ankleshwar. We opened up our chemical factory in Hyderabad. And all our engineering manufacturing facilities also opened, including our export-oriented unit. Now, in order to manage these operations, what is most important for us is to have cash in hand. We are not talking about using cash for fueling future growth. We are talking about just managing our working capital needs. So at this point of time, it would be very important to see that we are paid. I'm not saying that we change the contractual terms of conditions. We only say that just pay what is due to us so that we can manage our cash flows and we can provide the services for critical water and waste treatment requirements of our customers. We are also one of the largest service providers. So we employ close to about 1,500 people, and we operate and maintain 12,000 water and waste treatment plants in India. Now we have to pay salaries to all our staff, and I'm very pleased to tell you that nearly 70% of our 12,000 operation and maintenance contracts are running. There are customers who are also taking good care of our staff who are providing these services. But at the same time, it's important that we maintain their motivation levels, we maintain their levels, we maintain their needs of their financial commitments. And this can only happen if the company is able to have adequate cash flow to run its operations. So while most industries will begin operations with skeletal staff, and soon we will have the activities, the industrial activities going on. As I said, also with the incentive now that has been declared to the medium and small scale industry. Important thing is to see how the cash moves in our transactions in order to provide the level of services that are most necessary for our customers.
Thanks, Ajay. To maybe take the discussion towards a different perspective, I have a question to Hemant from Thermax. Sir, everybody that they or their employees and giving them options of working from home. How has this COVID-19 situation impacted customer engagement activities and programs that you might have planned or were running?
To answer the question, and very frankly, initially when we actually went into close down of our Pune office a couple of days prior to the lockdown was announced. And we had made our plans thinking that the lockdown would be announced, so we should pilot out the work from home. So the intention was that we should not lose out. There should be a continuity with the customer. There should be continuity. With that intention, we had started piloting the work from home quite early, almost a week before the final lockdown was announced. But I'll tell you, if you ask me, the biggest takeaway of this lockdown is work from home. I think most of us are from an era where we always and still believe that there is no substitute to interaction or a communication with a customer across the table face to face, but that has changed the perspective. We never felt that the engineering can work from home, the detail engineering can happen from home, the process engineering can happen from home. But in the last month, we have experienced and we have very positive results of working from home. So I would take this as a biggest opportunity offered to the industry to work from home. So our engagement with the customers, our engagement with our internal customers and external customers both, that means the teams which work, has been of a very high level. Had in fact formed a, when I said that we started the pilot, so we had the entire methodology worked out on how departments will work internally and cross-functionally with each of the teams. The infrastructure initially was a challenge to organize the infrastructure at people's homes, but that eventually was managed. So today, if you ask me, all our departments, all our functions are operating from home, including customer interface, which probably to my knowledge, the feedback that I get is that the productivity is high, the interaction, quality of interaction is high, and more so because even the customers have come up to a level where they are also used to working or interacting on digital platforms. So I don't think there was much of an impact. Either we were a week ahead of that, or the digital platforms were available with the entire community. So that was not a challenge. Now, but having said that, actually the revenue generation process is not working. Though the platforms are available, interaction is happening, continuity is maintained. In fact, the inflow of inquiries in the first 2 months has been substantial. The offer submission has been substantial. There are some orders finalized on the mails and other forms of communication. But actually, the fact is that there is no revenue generation happening except from our O&M stream, because there is no inwarding of material, there is no outward of material, there is no bills that are getting generated. So all in all, the softer part of it, the back-end work is happening. The actual production or the dispatch of material is affected. But I will repeat, I think for the entire industry, for the entire community, I believe this is an opportunity. This is a very, very positive thing, work from home. And going forward, we will see a literal change in the way we communicate with our customers, with our vendors, and with a lot of people internally and externally.
Yatin, you might want to elaborate of maybe changes that you have made in your customer engagement activities.
I mean, as Hemant as well mentioned, Kailash, that this is actually a great opportunity to leverage digital and collaboration platform for customer engagement. We have been doing a little bit in the past, but this whole thing has fast forwarded adoption of this platform to stay connected to the customer, whether you are in marketing stage, sales stage, execution stage, or even at services stage, right? And what we're realizing, our team is actually realizing that this probably can work. You know, this actually is a quicker, probably better in terms of coverage, and definitely more cost efficient, right, way of doing it, right? And as the distancing becomes a norm, probably this may become a preferred option as well, right? I think we have to be more creative and agile by leveraging our digital engagement options and create tools by exploring all possible possibilities across entire value chain, I would say, right from marketing, sales, service. I'll tell you one advantage that we got of digital adoption was during the services when we were operating with very reduced manpower. But because we had remote monitoring and diagnostic capability, we were able to operate those O&M sites much better, even though they had reduced manpower, because we were able to monitor it remotely. So this has been the advantage of the digital adoption as well.
Thanks, Yatin. I will now take the, we have talked about the impact for some time. I will take the question back to Rajneesh now. So Rajneesh, the focus of the government till now has been on saving lives and reducing the impact on human life. Would you have any suggestions in terms of what do you think the government should now do in terms of reviving the projects and reviving the industry? You mentioned about financial institutions needing to step up. Would you care to elaborate about that?
Sure. First thing is, it's up till now, as you said, the focus is still on, saving lives. But what is the learning out of it is that, see, we are talking about health hygiene. I think water and sanitation are imperative to health and hygiene. So first thing is the government has to, refocus on this particular area. I think this is a basic fundamental right of every citizen, whether he's staying in an urban environment or he's staying in a rural environment. I think so the focus has to be on the sanitation. So first thing is government has to continue the spend, which is planned for the sector, be it water or sanitation, rural or urban. So that's the first thing the government, because if tomorrow there is another pandemic or epidemic, and we do not have this, today everybody is talking about washing your hands multiple times every day. If tomorrow, if there's no water, how do we do that? And I'm sure Sajid will agree with me. All our water treatment plants are running to more than our designed capacities, and all our sewage treatment plants are running to their full capacities. An interesting learning out of the whole thing is that during this particular phase, as far as wastewater treatment plants are concerned, I'm typically referring to the municipal wastewater treatment plants. We realize that whatever parameters we have designed it for, we are achieving much better results compared to that. So another thing is, compliance. So I think with our municipal sewage, a lot of time, there are effluents which get mixed. So that's something which government needs to take note of, which is a learning from this particular phase. We all are breathing very clean air. We have been, getting very clear water. We have seen a lot of videos of the rivers with absolutely crystal clear water. So I think whatever are the gains we have got during the see how do they retain those gains. Now coming to typically the projects. As I mentioned earlier, my first submission to the government would be, please release all the overdue payments of all EPC contractors. I think this has been there on a lot of business channels. I've spoken about it, that one of the major concerns has been the timely payments from the government departments. So if that is done, that would be the biggest thing which can help these projects, catch up. Definitely, we don't see these projects, coming to the same pace as I mentioned in one of my blogs. Probably we'll have to start in the first gear, and gradually, as the speed picks up, we'll have to keep on shifting gears. That's the only way we see these projects to catch up. The other thing is, which we realize is today, the basic infrastructure which is required to operate a construction site, that is going to be the key thing. Starting with transportation, I think Hemant spoke about it. There are a lot of trucks lying, but then there are no drivers to carry those trucks. So the availability of transportation, public transportation, we don't see it getting resumed in near future. So how the people are going to commute for these, wherever we have sites, and most of our sites are in remote places. Third is, the new safety norms which we have introduced at all our sites, right from screening, sanitizing, personal hygiene, everything. All these things are going to lead to a substantial additional cost. And in these particular circumstances, the government has to relook at, where, they can support us. Although Ajay mentioned that, probably they are not looking at reworking the contract, but our humble submission to all our clients would be, given this kind of a circumstances, they need to rework the contract. We do not want to make any extra profit out of it, but whatever is our additional cost, which is going to increase to execute the projects in new circumstances, at least that needs to be reimbursed. Third is, there are a lot of incentives, like say our external exports. There is a foreign trade policy. Probably that can be extended. The benefits of that can be extended for at least a year. There are other things where they can help us. A lot of corporates is that during this particular phase, almost for a 3-month phase, there are a lot of fixed overheads. There is a lot of fixed cost which we are incurring, which the entire every industry is incurring. Probably they can be treated for a P&L purposes as a deferred cost. So probably that can help us, in a big way. So these are the few things which I think government needs to take note of. There are n number of things. Probably because of the paucity of time, I'll restrict to this. And when it comes to support from financial institutions, I think we have spoken a lot about a lot of benefits coming to this thing, a lot of announcements coming to this thing. When we are operating in geographies like Europe, if the government says a financial institution has to get the support and an extended credit line has to be given, it takes us a few days to get that additional credit line. But when it comes to India, I think still the announcement is there, the money is there with the financial institution, but the benefit of that going to corporates is still something which needs to gather pace. Now we have a lot of debt interest payments that can be deferred for 3 months, and it can be even converted into a term loan which can be paid over the next, say, 4 quarters. So like this, today others also mentioned, today the inflow has stopped as far as cash is concerned, but outflow is there. See, we have some of our very esteemed partners here in this panel also. So a lot of our purchases from their various destinations abroad, they are on LC basis. Now today the inflow is not there, but LC is due during this particular period. So one request to these financial institutions and the government would be that the same amount which is payable in terms of LCs, if that can also be converted into a term loan which can be paid over the next 4 to 8 quarters, that can definitely help us maintain our cash flows and liquidity. So these are a few things which I feel that can definitely help us overcome this, and definitely we don't foresee ourselves into the top gear anywhere in near future. We are starting the process. As I said, we'll start on the gear 1. It's not going to be automatic vehicles. So as and when we increase the speed, we keep on matching it with the gear. So that's the way we see this going forward. And the support both from financial institutions and the government is going to be the key factor, especially given our municipal business.
Thanks, Rajnish. A question to now Sajid is, Sajid, what do you think are the challenges that EPC firms would be facing other than just manpower deployment? Do you see any other challenges that large companies like you would be facing?
I heard you asking Mr. Rajnish about the focus of the government being towards saving lives, and I believe that's the right prerogative, and going forward also that is going to be the case. As regards how the construction how the EPC sector in municipal water has been impacted, and what are the action plans that we need to initiate to see that we reach some kind of normalcy in a time-bound manner. I have some suggestions. Of course, that is only from L&T. It is speculative in nature, but we would like to categorize them into 4 different buckets. Starting from creating demand in the market, and as soon as this lockdown was announced, we have seen that there is a vacuum that has been created. There is no demand in the water industry. So in order to ensure that the demand is recreated, the government has to kickstart all the projects that have been that are on standstill, after taking all the right kind of precautions to ensure the safety of lives. That is already being done. On the and then there are many projects where tenders have already been floated, and these were in the fag end of getting awarded, but it got postponed because the lockdown was announced. And I believe that these projects need to be pushed in the right figure, and the order should be concluded so that there is more confidence within the water industry about how the situation is going to pan out in the future. Furthermore, there are many prospects which are in various stages of conceptualization of the tendering process. These should also be pushed through, and the visibility should be available to the industry as regards how the water and wastewater sectors are going to go ahead in the future. So if these 3 things are done, we see that enough demand is created, and there is positivity that will be generated in the water sector. That is one. From the contractors, and this of course has to be done by the government departments and the government. On the contractor side, as I said earlier, we need to still bring in the best of technologies. Somebody talked about automation, state-of-the-art, instrument, IoTs, and sensors and things like that. Artificial intelligence, probably a new way of executing work. All that the contractors are bound to have to bring now into the scheme of things, so that the production in the field continues unabated. Although what I agree to what Mr. Rajneesh said, that there is going to be a lull, there is going to be a temporary halt, a temporary loss of speed as regards the pushing of projects is concerned, but it is incumbent upon the contractors to ensure that the right kind of automation and mechanization is brought into the scheme of things, so that we don't lose out on productivity. As regards cash in, I think that is a very important point that many of the panelists have already talked about. Many of the companies in the water sector and in other industries have been impacted because their valuation has dropped by 20, 30, 40%. And on top of this, we are also seeing that revenues are not going to be there. It has not been there for the last 2 months. It is also not going to be much favorable going ahead. So there is a revenue loss. But at the same time, where we are incurring costs because there are fixed components, fixed assets, staff wages, workmen wages, staff salaries, workmen wages that need to be taken care of, and we also need to take care of the safety and hygiene of all the ecosystem that is going to go into the execution of projects. So there is a huge cost and a cash burning that is happening parallelly when there is no revenue and when the valuation of the companies are going down. So it's a kind of triple whammy that is happening on the industry, and it is incumbent upon the government to ensure that cash in hand is made available to the contractors or to the industry at this juncture. Starting with, as Mr. Rajneesh rightly said, we need to get all the outstandings liquidated, as VATEC has, so does L&T has a lot of outstanding with a number of states, and these need to be liquidated ASAP. Furthermore, there may be many bills which have been kept under hold because of the lockdown. These also need to get certified and the payments be expedited as soon as possible. In many of the projects, there would be unavailed and mobilization advances because of the impact of COVID. These also need to be released by the government department in a speedy manner. And though force majeure has been agreed by the government, it has to be implemented at the project level, and there should be an unconditional extension of timelines. As also there should be consideration of extra advances, maybe deferment of mobilization advance, waiver of interest on mobilization advance, maybe temporary postponement of nations, and so on and so forth, so the cash in hand is available to the water sector. This will breathe some kind of life into the sector. Beyond this, we also feel that the government can come up with tax moratoriums. They can also speed up the refunds. They can balance the input and output tax slabs so that the cash outflow is limited for the industry. So with as part of such activities, cash will be available to the industry to at least take things forward in the immediate future. There was something that Mr. Rajni said, and I totally concur with him. There is a third bucket. You said saving lives. We also have to save organization while these things happen. There is a cost escalation that is happening. There is a time escalation that is happening. Time escalation may be taken care by invoking force majeure clause, but the cost escalation needs to be looked at in a very, very precise manner by the government, and there should be a holistic and uniform framework that needs to be deployed in a time-bound manner to all the projects so that the revaluation of the contract happens and the cost escalation is covered. I also agree totally with whatever Mr. Rajni said about financial institutions, and I think that is the fourth bucket that I would like to talk about. The financial institutions should be in a position to make available working capital through debt instrumentation, debt instruments maybe at lower charges, and the process itself can be made much more simpler. But also can be made simpler, the charges can be brought down, and so on and so forth. As regards funding of the projects, I would suggest that many more of the projects in the water and the wastewater sector be taken under multilateral funding. The multilateral funding agencies on their side should come in and support the Indian water and wastewater sector, because the country houses about 18% of the world's population, and the water infrastructure needs attention. Maybe they can also contemplate the duration of the repayment and bringing down the interest charges. So all in all, the government departments can bring in fund. They can help the industry by ensuring that cash in hand is available. They can also help by reevaluating the contract value to take care of the cost escalation. The contractors need to bring in the best of technology, the best of mechanization, so that work starts in the right vigor in the field. And the financial institutions need to help the sector by providing working capital. The funding agencies like JICA, World Bank, ADB, and NDB, they can come in and support more projects in this country, which houses 1.33 crores, 133 crores of the world's population.
Thanks, Sajid.
Sorry, 1.33 crores. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So moving on, a common question that I see popping up in most discussions is that COVID-19 has created a scenario that there's so much of uncertainty that, we don't know what's going to happen next. So a query I have to maybe Ajay, if he can share about this, is that the last quarter, March has nearly gone with absolutely no activity. April is nearing its end. So how does a company or an organization do strategic planning or do planning for the future, considering all this uncertainty that's there?
Kailash, I'll answer this in two parts. First, I'll reflect upon how the last quarter has been for industries and companies in general, because we have to look at the impact COVID had in numerical numbers, and I always like to quote numbers as a part of my suggestions or answers. So if you look at the, generally Q4 and Q2 are the quarters where most companies do well with respect to their revenues. And if you look at the GDP figures of the country, the Q4 and Q2 figures are always higher than Q1 and Q3. So COVID times came during Q4 when our revenues ideally should have peaked. Now, I would like to take an analogy or compare this to how we fared in Q4 as a nation, also as industries, in terms of the GST figures. So February GST figures were 97,500 crores. Now, if you look at the preceding 4 months, we had crossed about 1 lakh crores. And in this particular month, in the month of March, we were expected to end at about 1,25,000 crore, which would have been the highest GST collection since the time GST was introduced. Instead, we end up something like about 30% less. Now, on a year-on-year basis, if you see, it is an 8% reduction. So this quantifies the impact COVID has on our industry, our revenues, and also, what we should do as a strategy to overcome these losses in Q4. because if you look at the Q4, most companies are going to look at a revenue reduction of about 8 to 10%. The gross margins would get affected by about 5 to 8%, and in many cases, the net profit would come down to about 15 to 20%. So, how do all these things? How are we going to make it up in the first quarter, which traditionally is always been bad? As I said, Q4 and Q2 are always the best quarters for us. But now, if we have to make up for the best quarter in historically worst quarter of performance, I would say that I would like to use the 3 R's, because in water industry, we use it very often: reduce, recycle, reduce, reuse, and recycle. So I would use 3 R's, and I would say that rethink, refocus, and restart. So we have to rethink in terms of fundamental changes with respect to how the consumer behavior is going to evolve post-COVID, and what are our learnings, as we heard about how we are supporting our customers also during this difficult COVID times. So there is going to be a fundamental change in. There's also going to be a fundamental change in view of in terms of employee engagements. The work for home culture, which Hemant talked about, its benefits, etc. Are we going to continue using it for our benefits? So this is the rethink that is going to come. The rethink is also going to come in terms of the markets that offer us the leverage for the best competitive advantage each company has. So now is not the time to spread ourselves thin. Now is the time to look at the markets that best suit each one of us, and use our competitive advantage lever to come out of the losses that has happened in the last quarter. So one of the things of rethink would also be from the supply chain management would be alternatives to tier 1 supply chain. So if you look at the initiative of the government of India related to, let's say, the pharmaceuticals, that the whole industry was dependent on China for its raw material requirement. It has already announced a very big package, a very big investment running into about 4,000 crores to set up pharmaceutical parks which will make APIs and BPIs, which are the raw materials that the industry imported from China. So these are the rethink on the part of the government. In a way, we should also rethink about customer and employee engagement. The second R is the refocus. And as I said earlier, that we have to refocus ourselves to believe that cash is the most important focus area for all of us to sustain our operations and to continue our levels of services in times to come. The refocus also has to now come on how are we going to apply our strategies to Q2 and Q3. The worst, let's say, if it is going to be over, how can we refocus ourselves to Q2 and Q3 in order to see that we come up with strategies, rethink ideas in order to stay afloat. And finally, all of us will restart. Restart with the learnings of the new norm. So restart would happen with tapping all possible government stimulus packages. I talked about the MSMEs getting 1 lakh crore from the government. So let us avail of all this government stimulus that will come. Let us also not be in a hurry to demand a lot of things, because the government is doing excellently well, as all of us know, in terms of managing the nation, managing this COVID epidemic. Let us give them some time. And when this time and opportunity comes to us, let us use this stimulus to our advantage. The second restart would be to freeze most capital expenditures and redeploy whatever the scarce funds are where they are most needed for our operations. Be it for product development, market development, we have to restart with those avenues which we believe will get us the highest returns. And finally, from the banking sector, we heard Sajid, we heard Rajneesh talking about the lenders coming to our help. I think whenever it happens, because after all they are selling money, and they will not sell their money where there's a risk involved at this point of time. So whatever is going to be available from these lenders, draw down all lines of credit that are available to you. Because if you need cash to see that your operations are sustained and you are able to apply your refocused strategy or rethought strategy, you would need cash. So draw all lines that are available to you and make the best use of cash. So this, Kailash, would be my mantra for returning with respect to our strategies, business approaches, as and when normalcy starts resuming through rethink, refocus, and restart.
Thanks, Ajay. I would now like to go to Hemant from Velo Matter. Hemant, a similar question to you is that how does a company like you now start planning its operations for the new year, its inventories, its cash flows, considering that everything is so uncertain right now?
Well, I think this question is quite relevant in this particular environment, where this environment is filled with what I call is a FUD, full of FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubts. Because I'll give you one example. We shipped one consignment from Kolhapur for urgent parts for Goa. And in Goa, when it reached, the driver was stamped with quarantine stamp. Now, I don't understand why people are taking, or why the authorities are taking such a stand. This is instilling fear. And as Mr. Hemant was telling, many trucks are lying on the road. The drivers have gone to their homes. How to get them back? It's really an issue. So restarting the entire chain, we need to remove this uncertainty, doubt in the minds of people first. Of course, one has to take care of the COVID-19. If it spreads, it will impact a lot. But then at the same time, we have to make a cautious start in order to make sure that this whole chain of industry and supply chain gets back. Let's understand the second aspect. This virus is going to stay with us. Even the WHO head has said. So which means we have to reinvent the new way of working. And that is where exactly I would be really happy to say that this COVID-19 has taught us one thing, that we don't have to be in the offices necessarily to conduct our business. We are as efficient as we can be operating from our homes. Our engineering departments, our sales force, our service department has done a tremendous job in this particular COVID-19 last 1 month period. I would also mention Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, what he wanted to say. He said once, PURA, providing urban amenities to rural area. Very simple term, which means that you make the rural India vibrant. So our people who are staying, our employees who are staying in the rural part today, they are able to communicate. They are able to use the internet very effectively, and we are able to continue our operations to some extent with this remote support. So these digital means are here to stay. The social distancing should not be taken as social isolation. We should be connected with each other. The operations, as we said, and Mr. Sajid was also mentioning about it, we will have to reinvent the way we are doing these operations. We have to be able to remotely control these operations. The inventories, as the cash is important, has to be monitored on a very strict level. Last year, we could manage to get down the inventories by 24%, but this is not enough. I think we will have to go down another 25% this year in order to conserve the cash, which is very much required to run the business. This period we are using it for training, reskilling our employees, and one thing we are able to recognize, our factories, both factories which are running with some skeleton manpower, 25% at Kolhapur and maybe 10% at Pune, majority of them are blue collar. And believe me, without having a white collar supervision, they are doing an excellent job. This indicates that when you put the faith in them, when you put trust in them, they do a much wonderful job than what we can even think. They are behaving so, I would say, responsibly, that we are watching them on the CCTVs. because CCTV's footage are available always to us on a computer. And we see that they are maintaining social distance even when they come for punching, when they operate the machines, when they move the material, when they load the trucks. So I believe the maturity in the form of understanding the situation and responding to it is very much seen from every quarter of employees as well as people. Our service people, they engaged from a different perspective. They said, let's go digital. They had already started that platform. What they did was they invented kind of a helmet with clamp-on gear, wherein you have a camera, you have Bluetooth, and the service technicians on the field, they are able to guide them and carry out major service jobs. Because in this case, to transfer a person from Pune or any other big places to the service requirement places is very difficult. So we are able to manage this very effectively. The person is having hands-free, our people are able to communicate with him, guide him, and carry out the service job. So we are, in a way, learning new tricks of doing business. And this is a great gift which we have got from COVID-19. As the nature is illusionating, we are also hibernating, we are also learning, we are trying to learn new ways of doing the business.
Thanks, Hemant. I'm going to start the audience questions in the next 10 minutes. So a final one or two queries that I had to the panelists was maybe if Yatin or Nitin could share their views on this, is that now social distancing is the new normal. Everybody talks about social distancing, and as I think Hemant mentioned right now, that COVID is going to remain with us for some time now. So a query I have is that how does one manage customer engagement in such a scenario? And most importantly, you know, for companies like you who dispatch a lot of products and technologies, you know, how does one handle the inspection part of, you know, those deliveries that used to happen earlier? Maybe Yatin, you want to take that?
Sure, Kailash. As I mentioned earlier also, Kailash, I think it's really about leveraging digital and collaboration platform. I think it boils down to that. The technologies are all available. You know, it's actually about adopting. I would say from water industry standpoint, I think there is a lot of catch up to be done because a lot of other industries, I would say, have moved ahead in terms of those adoption. So I think we just need to look at them and adopt those technologies, move forward. I mean, like you mentioned, inspection and all can be actually done remotely. Likewise, I gave example that how we have been able to run some of those remote O&M sites as well, remotely through our remote monitoring diagnostic platform. So it really boils down to leveraging digital as a technology. And I think water industry has a big requirement of adopting this technology across the value chain.
Nitin, you want to maybe elaborate on that?
Yeah, just a couple of points. You know, I think because there are some excellent points that were discussed on the financial challenges and operational challenges. But you know, like Yatin talked about, you know, India is a very face-to-face. You know, we like to do things face-to-face. You know, whether it's customer discussions, whether it's you know, discussion with regulators, government stakeholders. Also, our operations are very labor-intensive. Where, you know, we are putting a lot of manpower. I think this is an opportunity to change the landscape, you know, in terms of how do we engage more over the internet, remotely. How do we make our operations more, you know, more automated or using digital technologies. I think as product solutions, you know, companies, we also have to focus on innovation and what is, you know, fit for purpose innovation for these type of situations, you know, and have, you know, work with global, our, you know, global counterparts to figure out what are the best practices that are being practiced in other countries, other regions. Disinfection, for example, just as an example, I'll talk about disinfection. You know, disinfection can be a you know, good innovation right now because you know, if there is a any pathogens in the water or wastewater industry, how do we tackle that? You know, we have UV, ozone. You know, we have chlorination historically. How do we tackle that? How do we tackle that affordably? So, and then the second piece I will also talk about is, rural. I mean, we talked a lot about urban, but rural India is also something where, there is a lot of innovation that we can do. How do we take care of rural communities, some of those institutions, and what can we do in terms of bottom of the pyramid? So these are some of the new innovations that as product and technology companies we have to take on as well.
Thanks, Nitin. What I will do now is that we have close to 300 questions that have come into the, to the organizers. Now, obviously, I cannot cover all the 300 questions in the next 20-25 minutes that we have left. But I'm going to try to address most of them because, some of the questions are quite common. So there is a question that's coming up. Maybe Hemant, if you, Hemant from Thermax could, maybe answer this. There is a repeated query that's coming from a whole lot of. Hello.
Hello. Am I audible?
Yeah. So Hemant from Thermax, this is a query that's come up that what do you think is going to be the scenario for the O&M contracts business going forward? Do you think with social distancing as a norm that this is a sector or the job opportunities will decline?
No, we'll look at it in two aspects. One is the O&M contracts as such, whether we will see an increase in the O&M contract, increase in the services to be rendered to the customer. Obviously, yes, I am bullish on that. We will have more of O&M contracts running. The way we'll have to look at it is, there are various sectors which need various types of services, and all can't afford all the services. So we'll need to look at the customer's requirement, offer him what he needs at that point in time, and have a variable sort of services, branded services to be given to him. I see, so in a nutshell, I see that the O&M in a scenario like this would obviously be one of the areas which will continue the numbers are going to increase. Second part, you asked about the number of, will it reduce the number of employees? Yes, I think with the social distancing norms coming in. Number two, with the present scenario in which the O&M sites have run, there's a realization that probably there is a high chance of optimizing people at each of the sites. Yatin mentioned about automation. With higher degree of automation, with the IoTs, the IoT coming in, and a lot of remote control that can happen, we would be able to optimize the number of people at site. So in and all in all, if we have 1,500, 2,000 people presently operating X number of sites, probably the same number can today operate X plus some number of sites. So obviously the deployment of people will obviously there'll be an impact on that. I also believe that the SLA type of contracts, where it was more of contracts which were on manpower basis, that you will have to provide such number of manpower, there'll be a rethink on that at both ends, at the customers and at our end, of how do we optimize that, because we have gone through an unprecedented situation today. And as Ajay was also mentioning, that the only line of revenue open at that point in time was the O&M or the services line, and it was somehow managed. We were able to manage that. The customer services were kept running. So this remains the pillar of any of the services to be rendered or any of the product offerings to be given to the customer. So this will continue. Optimization will happen. Automation will happen. So same number of people handling larger number of sites. It's a win-win situation for the customer and for the service provider both.
Thanks, Hemant. Rajnish, we have a set of questions for you that people have posed. basically the gist of the questions is that do you see investment priorities of the government in the wastewater sector going down, over the next 2-3 quarters? That was one part of the question. And second was that do you think that principal EPC players would be ready for revisions in their contracts now that COVID-19 has been given the force majeure, option?
Okay, thanks, Kailash. See, as far as the government spend is concerned, I think we all are aware that there is around 3.6 lakh crore which is earmarked for Jal Jeevan Mission. There is substantial money allocated under Namami Gange and also now NRCP, which covers most of the rivers which are highly polluted. Now, government spending in immediate future, definitely they will also have to post this lockdown, see where they have to prioritize their funding. But in the longer run, I think given the kind of situation we have faced, we have realized how important for a country like India the basic water and sanitation infrastructure is. And as some of the people mentioned that we are looking at more manufacturing and make in India kind of an effort going up post this COVID. So even to support that kind of an infrastructure in industries, all this is imperative. So you cannot without providing basic water and sanitation, you will be able to support this. So even, and also as one of my colleagues on the panel mentioned, that there is enough of appetite for multilateral funding given the economic situation which is being forecasted for the country. So a lot of multilateral funding, whether it is World Bank, whether it is Asian Development Bank, whether it is JICA, whether it is KFW, I think they are also seeing a lot of opportunity for investment in India into the infrastructure. And I'm sure EPC players like Sajid, you'll agree with me that we are more comfortable if there's multilateral funded projects, because we find that our cash flows and even the quality of the projects, the specifications are always a little better. So I don't foresee that maybe 3 months from now, I think this will take a priority in my particular opinion. I have a contra view on this compared to most of the people who have been forecasting that this thing, because water and wastewater infrastructure is imperative. There is no way. And let us all realize that as citizens, I do not know, I think maybe I'm repeating for some of the people, but then when did we experience this kind of a clean air and water? I think probably in our childhoods, with all our gray hair today. So I think even citizens will be equally demanding. I don't foresee this will be, not a priority for the government. Rather, I have always, categorized health hygiene, because when water and sanitation is taken care of, your health hazards will automatically reduce. So maybe today there are, temporary hospitals which are being set up, but that does not mean that in the long run, we'll need millions of ventilators. So that's something I'm a very, very firm believer. I'm a die-hard optimist that, this sector will see more spending going forward, especially in the municipal and infra sector.
Thanks, Rajneesh. A query I have to, Yatin now is that, Yatin, do you see with a lot of disruption in the supply chain and all, there is a query from the audience that do you expect prices of most of the products like pumps, blowers and all that to go up? Is there a chance of prices going up?
Sorry, can you, Kailash, you're asking that would the prices of the products are going to go up right now?
Yes.
So at this point, I would say, Kailash, it's very difficult to say clearly from a supply chain standpoint. I think the whole manufacturing, everyone is going to relook at diversifying the supply chain. reducing the dependence from per se on the sole supplier, spreading it across multiple countries as well. We are a global company. We procure products across multiple countries as well. So that is going to be the first focus. I would say the big impact from an India standpoint, which we're going to see, is really the foreign exchange. I think that, because we are seeing devaluation, and that is going to have significant impact from our country standpoint on the product side. Otherwise, I would say with the demand actually going down, I would say actually prices probably may actually come down because the market may actually become more aggressive as well to get some of the business going.
Thanks, Yatin. Another query maybe, if Hemant from Vilo or Nitin from Xylem can address, is that 2 or 3 people have raised the query that there seems to be a strong anti-China kind of a sentiment going across the globe and also in India. And since a lot of products today in the wastewater sector do come from China, do you think that there could be a kind of a impact of this anti-China scenario on, the product side of the business? Maybe Nitin, you go first.
I think it's all about, I think, doing contingency planning in my mind, and we are doing that. Yes, some of our supply chain does depend on China, but having the plans to have a diversified supply chain, more localization, I think that's probably going to be important. The sentiment piece, I think, from a business perspective, I don't see that as having a massive impact. I think because at the end of the day, we have to, we have to choose the right product, right technology at the right price point, especially in a market like India. So I think specifically that sentiment may not be long term, but I think diversifying supply chain and doing contingency planning for these type of situations is important, and it's something that all of us will be doing.
Hemant from Vilo, do you want to add to this?
Sure. See, the point is, one thing is certain, that the sentiments which we all are seeing in the market, that the supply chain needs to be diversified, is becoming a reality. What we see from our European headquarters, they are now asking us to pull up our sleeves and make sure that we are able to supply those components which in parallel to what they are buying from China, because our China buying for the group is huge. It's more than 100 millions. So this they want to put in India, most of it. Not just because it is anti-China, it is mainly to have a parallel source, because something which happened in China 2 months back, now happening in India. So the group and all other companies, all our customers also, international customers, they are getting more sentimental from the perspective of diversifying the supply base. And that is where India, Vietnam, you must have heard, these countries are right now on the radar of many companies to enhance the purchase activities. So the global purchase activities happening from India, definitely in next, I would say 1 year, will change so dramatically. We ourselves won't believe why is this happening, because these sentiments we are able to gain from the kind of video conferences or the chats that we have with our European colleagues. Everybody is saying, look, we have to develop this component in India. When Indian supplies will be ready? When we'll be able to give the first consignment? So they are so active. So this is one part. The second part is the kind of infrastructure which has been created in the last 10 to 15 years in India is now coming to a stage that we will be able to take advantage of it. The roads are much better. The transportation has improved quite a lot. The supply awareness about quality in Indian suppliers have gone up tremendously. And all this will culminate into India becoming tomorrow's supply partner to these developed nations. So I have no doubt that India will have to play an important role in the coming months and years in order to be the supplier of world as far as high-tech products as well as low-tech products are concerned. Now, if we talk about the IoT-based technologies or even the ventilators, the kind of invention that the Indians came up with, we will be able to make, I think, 10,000, 15,000 per day in matter of 15, 20 days. And that's the kind of frugal engineering which we have in this country, which is going to support the Indian economy by large. And this will bring the world's focus shifting slightly from China to India. I'm a firm believer.
Thanks, Hemant. Maybe this is a question that I will direct to you, Sajid, because many people have asked this question. The question is that, does the COVID-19 virus spread through wastewater? And considering that there are so many positive cases that are increasing in all our cities, is there any chances that COVID could be transmitted through the human waste that is dumped into the sewage system? And is that a serious challenge or a health hazard to, operators who are working on, running the wastewater treatment and sewage plants?
I believe that there are instances where COVID-19 virus samples have been found in the wastewater. But whatever literature we could get our hands on and whatever little I know about the wastewater sector, we are given to understand that this is not going to pose any health hazards to the operators and to the general public, because the quantum of virus is not sufficient to spread the disease. So I believe that I've answered your question.
Okay. Ajay, maybe a query that people have posed to you is that, how do you think that small and medium enterprises in the wastewater sector should now change their strategy, considering COVID-19? How can they benefit from the various stimulus packages announced by the government? This was a question for you.
I think it's a very important question, and I would like to answer this on behalf of the water fraternity and the experience that we have. My advice to the medium and small scale enterprises in the water industry or the startups in the water industry is that please do not have aspirations to do EPC projects. Certainly not at this time to accept contracts from the government where you will not have enough finances or the working capital required to execute these particular contracts. My suggestion would be that at this point of time, it's an opportunity not only for the medium and the small scale industries, but everybody who's a participant in the water industry to change the conscious behavior of our customers. All our customers like their products to be engineered. They would not like to pick up something which is standardized. So my advice to the industry would be to advance and propagate the concept of pre-designed, pre-engineered, pre-assembled, and also pre-tested water and waste treatment plant. Particularly for the medium and the small scale industries and the startups, there is no other way than to take this particular approach if they want to be surviving and if they want to be successful in the long run in the water business. The second point would be that since all the plants, water or wastewater, or for that matter, the chemical treatment programs that are being applied for cooling water or the boiler water, so the waste treatment, it is imperative to use this time to once again, get the concept of turning standalone plants and chemical treatment systems into connected plants, which can generate useful data and which can be turned into decision algorithm remotely. Now, this is particularly true again for the small scale industry because you will have shortage of capital, you will have shortage of resources, there is like people, but you'll have no shortage of skill. So if you design your systems which requires minimal engineering, minimal site fabrication, minimal supervision, and use the IoT, I think you stand a good chance, because if you look at our country, the percentage of consumers who have water treatment plant, a home water purifier in their home is less than about 15%. So you can imagine the potential for even a water treatment plant for homes. Look at the households which are required to treat their water and who can reuse or recycle. It is just about 3% of the residential complexes. So see the opportunity and the potential. So don't get into the government sectors. Let it be with the big players with deep pockets. Hopefully they have deep pockets now. Focus on these areas where there is a need and where you can use your resources very effectively to provide quality goods and services.
I'll take 2-3 more questions before we end. So a question to Hemant from Thermax is that there is a specific question saying that how do you see the sector of hotels, malls, IT parks, who had huge, cooling systems. How do you see, that sector going forward? Would there be an impact, on the business opportunities in that sector?
I think this is the sector which is affected significantly and will continue to be affected for some time to come. Post the lockdown, we are all expecting that if and when the lockdown gets lifted, it will be lifted gradually, selectively, and the last of the things that would be opened or which would come up to life would be the hospitality sector we talked about. Whether it is the malls, the commercial setups, whether it is the hotels. Only a difference here would be we'll see in healthcare sector. The hospitals would be one which would, you would have a special focus on healthcare. So hospitals will continue. So there, obviously, there are opportunities available for both water and wastewater treatment, and also for medical waste incineration. And this, of late, we are seeing quite amount of queries coming in. So in the hospitality sector, the hospitals and healthcare would be one which will do well. The other sectors, the hotels, which obviously is related to the travel, related to tourism, related to people traveling out, staying in the hotels, is a big, I don't see much of a opportunity there. Similarly, on commercial complexes, we talked about work from home. And this is an opportunity for the industry. This is an opportunity for many offices operating. Once they get to this new normal of work from home, the rentals will fall. The utilization of space would be lesser. People will try to bring down. See, cost optimization is one thing which the companies have already started working on. So rental would be one area. Taking up areas as less as possible would be there. You will see a drop in rental. So there also, this sector also, to my belief, will take a lot of time to come back to normalcy. And similarly, the malls and the other commercial ventures will have a difficulty. So I would suggest the focus on healthcare and as a sector, there it might be a bit better than the other commercial space.
Thanks.
And this will have an impact all across. Not only here. This is a global impact which it will have. Not India, global impact.
Thanks, Hemant. Specific query that 2 or 3 people have put to Yatin and to Nitin is that do you see a huge spurt in artificial intelligence, digital and IoT-based technologies that will now suddenly, be implemented in the water and wastewater sector? Yatin, you want to go first?
Sure. So as I mentioned, Kailash, that overall the digital adoption from water industry standpoint, I would say water industry is really doing the catch up. A lot of other industries have gone ahead. One of the big challenges that we have seen on the water industry is not enough data being collected actually, right? And that is what would slow down the whole analytics part, the diagnostics part, the AI part of it, right? I think this high time as we move towards more automation, while at the when you're building the plant, we need to make sure that there's enough instrumentation being put in place so that all this data that is collected can be leveraged back for meaningful output. There's a lot that can be learned from this data. As we talked about, we can actually reduce the manpower on the O&M side. We can actually provide much better services if this data is meaningfully analyzed as well. It's high time actually we move away from just being focused on the capex when we are actually building the project to building all the instrumentation and digital components in, so that during the life cycle of the project, you're going to see the benefits.
Nitin, you want to share?
No, I completely agree. I think this will act as the trigger for digital transformation and digital adoption in the water sector. I mean, we do have plants where there's some amount of automation that's been built in, but I think this will definitely add in terms of the remote monitoring capability, visibility, remote operations, all the way to optimization. You know, now that the plant, how do you optimize the plant? So, and that's more on the operations side, Kailash, but also even the processes, you know, digital processes within the plant or within the utilities. I think that will also increase significantly. So this will definitely act as a trigger for digital transformation across the board, and AI and IoT will play a big role here.
I'll take two more questions before I end. So my question is to Ajay. Many people are asking Ajay as to how will the customer engagement part be post COVID-19. With lot of uncertainty, social distancing and all, how can companies start interacting with their customers better?
I think it is going to, I would say that one concept which has been missing as a part of offering from the water industry is a concept of do it yourself. Because this is a forum where we are talking about municipal business and we are also talking about industrial business, but my company is also part of the consumer product under our Zero B brand. And there are millions of homes who have installed home water systems or home water purifiers. And these are purifiers which require frequent servicing, if not 3 times, at least 2 times in a year. And if your luck has been bad, you would have probably ended up with your water purifier not functioning properly at home during the COVID times. So one of the learnings for the home water industry is to educate and guide consumer to do it yourself. Second thing which has saved at least our customers is that when we take an annual maintenance contract, we make it mandatory that all our customers keep the spares for 1 year with them. This ensures that whenever there is a service requirement, the service technician is not short of any spares. Maybe it is RO membrane or it's a pre-treatment cartridge or it's a disinfection resin cartridge that we offer. So with this two strategy of doing it yourself and also by having the critical spares at home, at least 20 to 30% of our customers were saved. Apart from the fact that we use very innovatively Jugaad, I'll call it as, I will not use a big name, but I would like to use the Indian Jugaad as a name, where the customer was on a video, technician was on video, and he had how to clean the cartridges or how to fit the cartridges. Now this is the new learning which will come into place, called as do it yourself. For the industrial perspective, we have talked as how the need imperatively would be to go for pre-engineered, pre-designed, standardized systems. this is the time when one would feel that marketing will become obsolete, but it's a big opportunity for marketing to convey and convince the customers of these new ideas, be it involvement of digital, be it pre-engineered, pre-designed, pre-tested plants to avoid all sort of interfaces. And of course, as all of us have realized, work from home has given us a fantastic opportunity to connect with our stakeholders, be our employees, be our vendors, or be our customers seamlessly. So these are the learnings. If we apply, I'm sure we will be able to not only improve our efficiencies, but I think we will be able to combat any future such crisis.
Thanks, Ajay. We are really short of time, and as I mentioned, we have close to 200 questions, and it is very difficult for me to address all of those in this short time. What I have discussed with the organizers is that we will be sending a list of all these questions to our panelists, and we will be sending the replies back to the people who had asked these questions post the webinar is over. We are just going to have a small poll that is there. It won't take more than 30 seconds before I hand it over to the organizers. So I would like to thank all my panel members for taking time out and making this discussion fruitful and relevant to all the people. I would now hand it over back to the organizers at IFAC, please.
Thank you, Kailash.
Well, thank you, Mr. Shirodkar, for smoothly moderating this session. We had the poll that was running. Have you already completed that? Yeah. So we just asked, what are the topics would you like to see in future? Water reuse and recycling is 74%, followed by global water scenario. We'll take your feedback from the attendees, and we will try and see if we can do another webinar on the topics that you have suggested. Before we leave, we'd like to thank all the close to 1,600 attendees who logged in. Thank you very much for logging in. It is an overwhelming response. And once again, thank our distinguished panelists, our industry leaders, Mr. Rajnish Chopra, Mr. E.P. Sajid, Mr. Ajay Popat, Mr. Hemant Joshi, Mr. Yatin Dayalia, Mr. Nitin Bhate, and Mr. Hemant Patwe. I'm sure with your optimism, we are certain we will bounce back stronger normal. Thank you very much, gentlemen. It was a pleasure to on the IFAT webinar.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Shirodkar.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shirodkar.
Thank
Bye,
you.
the IFAC team. Bye, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye. Stay safe.